So, you know that I've been running this podcast, the weekly podcast of knowledge. I finally gave it a name. I've been running this podcast for over a year and a half, probably something around that. And I started when I was like 16. And I'm so proud of starting this podcast because this has given me so many opportunities. This has given me so much knowledge over the years. This helped me network with multi-millionaires as a 17-year-old kid, 16 even, And it's crazy what I've been able to accomplish with this from a small village in Czech Republic, you know, speaking to all these people. And I'm going to speak about opportunities that it has given me and how much money I've also made thanks to it later on. But man, this has been one hell of a ride, and I couldn't be more grateful to my younger self for having the balls finally DM people to script the podcast, to do all the work behind it. And well, I'm gonna get into all of that later on, what goes behind it, because it's a lot tougher than some people think it is. So the first thing that I want to mention is about the people themselves and about success. Let's talk about success a little bit because the first lesson is success takes time and belief. Now, the most successful people that I've interviewed, they were uncertain at times. And honestly, they wanted to give up. And actually, most of them, almost every single one of them, they were uncertain along the way and they wanted to give up so many times along the way. If I asked somebody if they wanted to give up at some point, 90% of people said that, yeah, it's a lot of the times they wanted to, or they still want to some days to this day. And some people say that they did quit for a while and then they got back to it, which is probably the worst mistake. You don't want to give up on your dreams because there's nothing that can come out of that. Either one, you're gonna have to live with yourself, knowing that you're a quitter for the rest of your life, or you're gonna get back into it and you're gonna lose all the time in between after you quit. So just stick to it and do the bare minimum if you're on low frequency. By the way, I do have a video on how to increase your frequency, so you can watch that. So yes, and uncertainty is also a part of the success process. You will be uncertain whether what you're doing is working, whether if it's gonna work or not. Ask anybody, did you think you were gonna be successful? And they say, no, I don't think so. Even like, for example, Puffy got Buffy when he lost, I don't know how much it was, 150 pounds. He said, I never thought that what I look like now is attainable or achievable. And the majority of people I have interviewed, the most successful people, they actually think that they never could have imagined what is possible. What they thought was possible, they went past beyond that. So what you think right now that is possible for you, there's possible so much more than you can imagine right now. It only lies behind the work itself. So yes, and uncertainty is gonna be a part of the way. That was why some of them gave up and then got back into it. Uncertainty is when you don't know. And I heard this one quote from I'm not sure actually who it was, so I'm not gonna try to guess who it was, and then end up like it ended up being someone else, and I look like a fool. So just this quote, and maybe you can find whoever it was. He says, "If I could tell my younger self that I would make it, I would not have made it." So basically, you need uncertainty because that's what's gonna fuel you to work even harder. Because if you know that you're gonna make it, you're not gonna try as hard. You know that you're gonna make it eventually. If you don't know, that's what's gonna push you to work even harder. So you need that uncertainty. So be grateful that that uncertainty is there. Be grateful for it. Investing in your dream. That's another thing that I wanted to talk about. Listen, you want to make $1 million, you can't be afraid of losing $100, $1,000 on a seminar, on coaching, on a community, whatever. The most successful people invested in themselves, whether that's books, whether that's mentors, whether that's courses, whether that's anything. The most successful people invested in coaches, invested in personal trainers, for example. They invested in themselves, knowledge, all of that. They invested money and time in themselves. And that is so incredibly important. It's like very important, and it's paramount for you to invest in yourself, because that reassures your subconscious mind that you are serious about this, that you are taking this path seriously. It reinforces that in your mind. So you need to invest in yourself. This is like a non-negotiable. You need to not be stingy with your money, because if you believe that you will make $1 million next month, if you know you are guaranteed, shake hands with someone that they were gonna pay you $1 million, you wouldn't be stingy with your money now. You wouldn't be cheap. So why do you live like that right now if you believe that you're gonna be making $1 million? See, that's the thing. You don't believe that you're capable of making $1 million, and you still see it as a dream, not as a goal, not as a plan. You see it just as a dream far away. That's why you're afraid to invest in yourself. And without belief, there was this quote from Fight Gecko: you don't achieve your highest dreams, but your lowest standards. And if your lowest standard is a 9 to 5 job, you're gonna tolerate that. That's where you'll end up. Now, another thing they have to realize is that it's gonna take probably longer than you think. I know that you see these young millionaires and you think that you can become a millionaire in a year. That's most probably not gonna happen. I had this conversation with Oba the Great where I was at least 16 or 17, I'm not sure. And I told him, man, I feel like I'm behind, I see 14, 15, 16-year-old kids making 10, 20, 30K a month, and I'm 17 already, and I'm not even near there yet. I'm like, what do I do? And he's like, man, those are exceptions to the rule. You need to expect yourself to be below average. And the way he explained to me is like, your goals, you might achieve them later than you expect them to, because you have this fake big dick energy and this high ego. But don't be stressed out about it, because it's inevitable. God has never failed to give someone what he deserves. And quite frankly, if you don't deserve it, he might not give it to you. And maybe those guys were lucky, maybe those were exceptions, maybe God knew that they were gonna do something good for them. Maybe God knew that they were ready. Maybe you're not ready. Maybe God has some other plans for you. Maybe those people did something good with the money, but you wouldn't right now, and that's why God didn't give it to you. Look internally at yourself. Please, for the love of God, look at yourself internally. Don't expect for everything to be given to you when you expect it. Trust God's plan, not yours. Now, the second lesson: celebrities are way more reachable than you think, and they're normal people, just like you. It's not hard to talk to them. Before I start speaking about my own experience with this, I'm gonna speak about D. Scuddy and his experience, because D. Scuddy is the personal trainer and the bodyguard for Kevin Gates and Fetty Wap. Yes, those two big rappers with tens of millions of followers. Yes, and I interviewed him. So the way I don't know how he met Fetty Wap exactly, but I know how he met Kevin Gates. He said it in the podcast. If I remember it right, he went to a club and he just randomly met him there. And he just started a normal random conversation. He just shook his hand, took a picture with him, and just said that, hey man, I'm a trainer. If you need me, if you need any help, like, with personal training, let me know. And he was interested, and he offered him a free first training. And that was unusual, because most trainers charge, like $500 for first training, or something like that, because he's rich and they're trying to extract money out of him and trying to extract value instead of provide value. And Scuddy was actually trying to provide value first up front, and that's why he became friends with Kevin. And he said that he wasn't professional. He was professional obviously, but he built not outside of professional relationship. He built a friendship with both Fetty and Kevin Gates, and he's friends with them on a personal level. which is that's why he has been working for them for 5 years, 6 years. I don't actually know. You know, it's like you would think that reach Kevin Gates and be his friend if he doesn't know you is like hard. Just met him at a club and just started speaking with him and then just offered him a training for free. It's like it's that easy, you know. It's like celebrities are way reachable than you think. And I had my own experience with this. Now, Andrew Arteca might not have been really a celebrity. I don't know. 500,000 followers. I don't know if you consider that a celebrity, like 500,000 followers. But I DM'd him with 2 or 3 thousand followers at the time. 16, my second ever podcast, only one with Elio Goodrich, you know, bad quality and all that shit. I just DM'd him, you know, that I like his progress and his content, and I just want to do an interview with him. And he actually was down to do it, which was interesting. When I saw that, you know, because I just sent a DM and I was like, he's never going to reply anyways, but I'll just leave it there. When I saw him reply and say he's interested, I was like, to the phone. I was like glued to the fucking phone. I couldn't believe that shit. So that put a big smile on my face. Then we set it up. We have a good conversation. We actually went off script, you know, which I'm gonna talk about later on. But we were supposed to talk about fitness, but we ended up talking about business. And we had a good conversation, man, you know? And it's like he's 10 years older than me. He saw me as a younger brother. He actually gave me good life advice. Even after the podcast, we had a personal talk, you know? And it's like, man, even after a podcast, we kept DMing each other and asking for advice with some of the things I was doing at the time, my school community that I had, my coaching offer, you know, and he gave me good advice, which helped me make more money. So it's like, that was a very valuable experience for me. And if I was pessimistic from the start and say, I'm not going to DM someone with 500,000 followers, he's never going to reply. And if he's not going to do an interview with me because I have only 2,000 followers, and he's never going to do it. He did. And you know, Andrew was a big thing at the time, you know, like he stopped posting. Now he's at 400,000 followers. But the thing is, he was like, that gave me a lot of traction. That gave me a couple hundred followers overnight. You know, it's like something that, you know, man, was very, very valuable. It was. So, man, if you're thinking of, you know, DMing someone, just DM them and see. Now, there was one, which was the craziest thing, right? 4.6 million followers. I'm not gonna name who it is, but it was a fitness influencer. 4.5 million followers, 4.6 at the time, million followers. And he replied within 2 days, which was crazy. Now, unfortunately, he wanted paid podcasts and his rate was like $5,000 an hour. And I was like, holy shit, I'm not paying $5,000 an hour. Like, that's a little too much for me, you know? So I have to decline him, but it shows that even someone with almost 5 million followers can reply to you. So just send the DM and see. It's like, it's not like unreachable, you know, which is like crazy. Obviously, your Instagram has to still look professional. You have to have a good Instagram. I put a lot of effort into that, but yeah, man, that does make a difference. You know? Another lesson: preparation is key. Failing to prepare is preparing to fail. That's the quote, and it's absolutely true. And I've paid for that, and I had my own experiences with that. So, the first ever podcast that I ever did was with Elio Goodrich, which is still on my channel. And the video that you see there, the podcast, that's the second take that we had to do because the first episode I fucked up and I didn't record a sound from his side, and I only recorded my microphone, but not the desktop audio. So you couldn't hear him talk. And an hour and a half long conversation was just thrown away because of my stupidity and amateurism. Always double check the sound, the recording, everything is working fine because trust me, failing to prepare is preparing to fail. Now, Elio was so kind as to do a second retake with me a week later, which was honestly so nice of him. And I still thank you, Elio, to this day, because that was my first ever podcast. And that honestly taught me a lesson, but I want to thank you again for giving me a second chance. But yeah, man, some people wouldn't have, and I would have lost an opportunity. So always prepare properly. Another thing is proper research. Okay, do your proper research on the guest they were having. You know, if you're gonna have someone on your podcast, properly research who they are and what they did and all of them. Research some little nuanced topics. Don't have generic questions. Really fucking research them very thoroughly and properly. Trust me, it pays off. It pays off very well, and the conversation just flows so much better because you know this person more, first of all, and second of all, you're able to, make better questions. Prepare, spare a whole day just researching this person. It pays off. Trust me. Another one is social lubrication. Now, I know that this might sound weird, but lubricate socially. What does this mean? It means get in the mood of speaking, get in the mood of speaking to people. Bro, you don't want to, the last thing you want to do is be nervous on a podcast. Trust me, I've made this mistake before. You go on a podcast and you start stuttering, you start like fucking up, it's like, oh my God, I might have to edit this part out, and it's like cringe, it's like awkward, and it's like, you know, lubricate properly, don't be awkward. So this means if you have to go on Omegle for half an hour before, and and speak to strangers, speak to people that you don't know, they may be nervous, or guess you don't know him that well, speak to people on Omegle, for example. Call a friend, call a girl, call somebody, speak to people, or record a video. Recording a video is like social lubrication as well. You get in the mood of speaking better. Another thing that I need you to realize is talk to them before the podcast. You want to make this less professional, and I'm going to talk about this next, is talk with them. Like, like maybe even have a call with them. And let's say you want to have a, like a podcast on Friday at 3 p.m. for you, because of time zones. We might talk about that later on too. Then just simply ask them if you want to call, like, that morning at, I don't know, 10 a.m. Just like, talk about the podcast, what's gonna be. You get to know the person first, and you're not complete strangers meeting for the first time on the recording. That's so much better, to be honest. Or even sometimes I did it, like, with, for example, Nolan Ivy, right? I never spoke to this guy before. I went on the call, and I'm like, we ready to start recording? And he was like, oh, hold on a second. Let's talk for 5 minutes. I want to get to know you. So how long have you been doing this podcast? And how old are you, man? So how has this been going? What's the craziest podcast you ever done? We had a conversation, normal conversation for like 5 minutes, just for us two personally. And then we, only then after that we actually like gone to the recording, and the questions, which is so well, because it makes you less of a strangers, and it makes you buddies, and it's so much, the conversation flows so much better, man. So try to become their friends. Another thing is, don't be too professional. Okay? So don't hesitate to ask personal questions. I know that you might be scared of them, scared of this, and scared of offending them. Trust me, a lot of times people actually want to talk about these things. A fitness influencer doesn't want to just talk about fitness. He wants to talk about the time he was bullied in school for being fat, and ask them how they made them feel. What was their self-esteem like, and ask them about some traumas and unrelated stuff. Sometimes that makes the viewer enjoy the conversation so much more, because it's more personalized. And second of all, the guest just like builds a bond with you better, and they trust you more, and it's a more fun conversation. Their guard is lower, and they're more open to more questions. And it's like they don't give you generic question answers. They give you thorough, well thought answers. It's so much better if you just ask them personal questions every now and then. Another thing is, give your take. If they give an answer, if you have something that you want to say it. Just don't be too afraid of saying your opinion on stuff. Don't make the podcast just about them. Make it a conversation. So interviews with celebrities work like that. An interviewer on the red carpet, for example, interviews and the guest or the celebrity, and it's just about them. A podcast should be a conversation between two buddies. It should be a conversation between two guys. Now, maybe if you want to interview the guy, maybe making more like 80% about him, 95% about him, but give your an experience of yours. Give a quick 2 minute story, 5 minute story from your side. Go back and forth. Give your opinion. If you disagree with them on something, debate them. That's what makes podcasts so much fun. It's when you debate people on them, on their opinions, etc. And when you disagree, that's what makes a podcast so much fun as well. It's like, don't be afraid of that. Don't be scared of that. That actually has a lot of value, and I really hope that you would implement that, to be honest. It's like you're allowed to disagree, you know? It's not unprofessional, it's not rude. Obviously, don't be rude about it. Don't start insulting them. If you disagree, don't start getting emotional and insulting them about it. That's another thing. Go take a piss if you need to. This is one of the notes that I had, and this is something I wish I fucking implemented earlier, right? But if you need to go take a piss, go take a piss. Don't hold it in. If you have a 2-3 hour long conversation like I had with Dan DeCesaris 2 days ago, I needed to take a piss. I need to refill my water bottle. I went to do that, and he was like, "Okay, yeah, man, yeah, okay, I'll wait, no problem." Oh, but great too. I also went to take a piss. He went for a sandwich, whatever. It's like it's not if it's not live, and even if it is live, it's okay to take an intermission, take a break, etc. I was thinking about starting streaming my interviews on Kick, and it's like, yeah, man, honestly, I might even start doing that. So like, yeah, man, holy shit, just don't be too scared of it. That would be my personal advice. Another piece of advice I have for you is who you know and your previous podcast will help you to get new guests easier and build rapport with them. Trust. Because I did a podcast with Kyle Massey, and he was very good friends with Chaz Finnegan. They were working out together, we were very close, bodybuilders, etc. And I did a podcast with Chaz about a month or two later. And it's like when Chaz saw that Kyle follows me, I did a podcast with him, and I did a podcast with his friend. He trusted me more, and he wanted to do it more because I saw that I'd already spoke to somebody he knew. So if his best friend had talked to me, he won't have a problem talking to me, right? And actually, these people, they'll talk to their friend about you. It's like you'll be surprised. Like Chaz, before he did a podcast with me, he asked Kyle, what was the podcast with me like, and I imagine that Kyle said some nice things about me or says that I'm a cool guy. I wasn't so okay. I really bonded with Kyle pretty well, to be honest, on the podcast. So yeah, man. So that's what I believe, man. It's like if you did a podcast with somebody, take a look at who that person follows and see if there's somebody that interests you that you want to do a podcast with, and then DM them, because as soon as they see that you did a podcast with their friend, they're trusting you more. Another thing, don't do podcasts with somebody that you don't actually care about. Okay, so the conversation is dead. Do only podcasts with people that you actually care, that you want to talk to. Okay, keep this one in mind. For example, I'm gonna use this example, right? There was this one guy, right? I was supposed to do a podcast with him, but then he had to move countries and a lot of technical stuff. And then we've fallen out. I don't know. I've forgotten his name for some reason, but he was a friend of Hamza, the big influencer, right, with 2 million subscribers and 300,000 followers on Instagram, etc. And Hamza follows me. I know Hamza a little bit because I was in his program Adonis School for a couple months, and I spoke to him on a coaching call. And like me and Hamza, he followed me on Instagram. And the thing is, that guy who was actually closer friends with Hamza, he like actually mentioned to me, "Hey, I saw that Hamza follows you. Good job, man." It's like the fact that Hamza follows me and he's a very respected guy. shows social proof that I am trustworthy because somebody like Hamza, who with millions of followers, follows me, and because I've interacted with him and thinks I'm not a weirdo, that gives me like social proof, you know. So it's like if you can get somebody trustworthy to follow you, that is a lot of social proof that builds a lot of trust. Another thing, another note that I have here is previous episodes are testimonials, and that's absolutely true. They act as testimonials. Like you'd be surprised, you know. It's like people will look at your previous episodes and like who you've interviewed. He said, I had a guest, I'm not gonna name who he was, but he said that he watched a whole full length podcast of mine that I did before. Full like 2 hour long podcast. And he didn't know me, you know. And he watched a full length podcast that I did with someone. And that's and he liked that and he wanted to come on my podcast, you know. Because what was someone interesting that he knew and he wanted to watch a podcast, you know, whatever. It's like previous podcasts are interviews, so make sure to keep your name clean, keep it professional, don't have big technical issues in it, etc., and keep your podcast high quality. And yeah, man, honestly, it pays off. It pays off to have a good playlist of podcasts with good quality episodes, and they serve as really good testimonials. So make sure to not fuck that up. Now, another lesson that I have here is you'll fuck up, and it's okay. A lot of times you'll fuck up. Don't expect to be perfect. All right? Tweak and experiment with questions and topics and niches of guests that you want to do. I had a, an NFL player, a fucking celebrity bodyguard, fitness influencers, millionaires like in propane business, big influencers like content creators, YouTubers. I had all these different types of people on my podcast before, and it's like crazy. Bodybuilders, you know, all the types of people. And I experimented with what kind of people I like to, you know, I like to interview. And you see, there's a lot of value in that. Don't be afraid to interview. Don't think that you have to be only one niche. I used to think that I need to only like do podcasts in the fitness niche because I'm a fitness coach. No, I can do podcasts in the business coach because I'm a self improvement guy overall, and that's a part of money is a part of self improvement, right? And so it's like, don't be afraid to experiment. Don't be afraid to, you know, tweak, explore, see what you like, what you don't like, what niches you want to talk with people in, you know. It's like, it's okay to experiment. Don't expect to be perfect. And you'll fuck up, okay? Like that first fuck up that I mentioned at the beginning of this video, my first ever podcast with Elliot Goodrich. It was my first ever podcast. I forgot to turn on the sound from his side, you know. It's like that was a honest mistake, and I shouldn't have made it, but I made it, and now it's a cool story. And Elio, actually, the second podcast was so much better because we got to know each other in the first conversation, you know. So it's like it's kind of better, you know. It's almost as if everything happened for a reason at that point. And so it's okay to fuck up. Now, is this an excuse for you to be sloppy? No, absolutely not. Be professional, work hard, double check everything, and always be careful with what you're doing and double check always. You know, the sound, the recording, everything, but I've already told you that. But if you do fuck up, forgive yourself for it. It's okay. You know, if the guest won't forgive you for it, fuck him. You'll find someone else to do a podcast with. Who cares? Now, another thing is be professional. So I did a podcast with Dudley Jacques Edouard, and that completely changed how I did podcasts. So the thing is, I usually over DMs I just agree on a day and a time, and that was it. Until Dudley actually told me, send me a Calendly link, and I was like, nah, man, I'll be there at the time, I'll be there, trust me. It was like, no, I'm an organized man, I'll put it in my schedule. And I was like, oh shit, this guy's actually serious. And that completely changed. Like, I was from an amateur to a professional. I already started taking it so much more seriously at this point. And yeah, man, holy shit. It's like, it's so very valuable to be professional about it. Like, actually make a Calendly link, prepare it in the calendar. Script the questions, send them the questions that you want to do it. Write them if you have to. Spend a day or two researching it. Be professional about the podcast. That's what makes it so much better. Trust me, it pays off, man, 10 times. Now, another thing is just social anxiety and celebrity effect. That wears off over the time. I'm not gonna lie, man. After my first few podcasts, I was shitting myself. And I was actually like nervous as fuck. Even during the podcast, man. That's what the script is useful for. But after a while, I did podcasts with dudes with hundreds of thousands of followers, and I was like, they're normal people. It's like, it's okay. And so it's like you get used to it after a while, so used to it. And it's like, it's nothing special at this point. But yeah, the first few podcasts, first handful of them, I was nervous as fuck, bro. I was like shitting my pants because they didn't seem like real people and they seemed like normal people. They seemed like celebrities and these exclusive special people. They're just normal people, just like you, bro. Don't put them on a pedestal. It's okay. So yeah, this is like one thing that I had to realize, and once I realized that, everything started to go uphill from there. So yeah, don't pedestalize your guests too much. Don't suck their dick too much. And yeah, I always double check. I already told you that. Another lesson: respect yourself and demand your respect. Demand the respect from your guest, and respect your time. So I have this rule now: only reschedule once to twice at the very max. Never reschedule more than twice. Honestly, dude, the people that need to reschedule so many times are just unreliable and unprofessional. And on the third time you're rescheduling it, it actually can make it. They only have 30 minutes and they don't have time and they have to leave. And it's like so shitty behavior and they don't respect you. Don't let yourself get disrespected. It doesn't matter that he has 300,000 followers. If he needs to reschedule for the third time, fuck him. You'll find someone else. I've already told you the abundance mindset. You will find someone else. People with hundreds of thousands of followers, millions of followers, they reply. There's thousands of them, and there's thousands of people they will like to do a podcast with. I want to do a podcast with someone that respects you. Don't do a podcast with someone, even if you like them, but you say they don't respect you, they don't like you. Don't do a podcast with them, bro. It's okay. It's only reschedule once or twice. I had this guy, right? Adam Biedron from Germany, right? He has like 30,000 followers. Adam Biedron. You can find him on Instagram. He needed to reschedule. We scheduled on a time at 8 p.m. on a Monday, probably. It was like a month ago, probably. And that time came. It was 7 p.m. and I asked him, "Hey man, so can't wait to do a podcast in an hour from now. Always check up with them like half an hour from then if they can." He said, "I don't have time. Some other time." And I was like, "You should have made time, dickhead. Like we've told you, I've told you this. I've sent you a Calendly link. You've put it in your calendar, motherfucker. You should have made time for it." He was so unprofessional. And honestly, I didn't even bother to schedule a second, to reschedule. He didn't even offer, "Hey, can we do it this day? Can we reschedule for another day?" It's like with girls. If they don't offer you a reschedule date by themselves, don't even try to reschedule it. So yeah, and another thing, if they're late, reschedule it. Okay? If they're late, if you're like, it's time at 8 p.m., it's 8:10 p.m. You ask them, "Hey man, you still want the podcast?" They say, "Hey man, yeah, I'll be there in 20 minutes." You're like, "No man, let's do some other time." And they'll say, "No man, I'll be able to do it in 20 minutes." "No, I don't do it that way. Let's reschedule." Demand respect. This is what I mean by it. they respect you more because they see that you're not so needy and you will not suck up to them, and you'll not tolerate them being half an hour late. You will not tolerate that bullshit from them. So this is what you do. You reschedule if they come late. And if they come late for a second time, fuck you. Fuck you, I respect myself. Goodbye, bitch. That's what you do. Because as soon as you'll get very successful at podcasting later on. And they will try to come back, right? They will try. I had guests that personally didn't want to come on a podcast. And a couple months later, they asked me, hey man, do you still want to do that interview? And I'm like, nah man, sorry, I don't want to do it. I'm like, dude, they didn't want to do it. They were unprofessional about it. And now they want to do it. No, fuck off. I don't want to. I don't need. I got so many guests. I got so many podcasts scheduled for the future. I got 6 podcasts to do this week. I don't need a 7th one. If you were so unprofessional in the past, I'm not forgiving you. It's like that girl that cheated on you and she wants to come back. No, bitch. Fuck off. Your time, both of you need to be professional. Both of you need to respect each other's time. You can't be late. If you're late, you need to apologize and hope that they will do a second. And if they're not gonna reschedule, don't blame them. You were late, you were unprofessional, quite frankly. Another thing, last thing to this, in terms of respect, is don't be a fan. Don't be a fanboy or a fangirl. Don't do that shit. They will, if you treat them like a celebrity, they will treat you like a fan. They will not respect you. They will not help you. They will just do the podcast, you know. They will not. It's like, don't be a fan. Demand their respect, but you need to be on the same level as them. And the last lesson is go off script. I know that we've talked about being professional here, and this might sound weird, but going off script is going to help you so much more, to be honest. Make the conversation longer by ranting. If you have an idea that you want to talk about that's related to the question, just say it and just get into rant. This is how I made conversation with Dan DeCesar, is 3-hour long podcast. It's like the longest podcast I ever did because we went on rants and we clicked and we were just like, you know, friendly, and we were just like, we just vibed together, you know. And it's like, if you go on rants on a side tangent, you just make the conversation longer, which viewers like longer podcasts. And, you know, you just click with a person better. And it's like, rants are actually valuable. A lot of people love that. And honestly, about professionalism, go off script. Don't be so extremely professional on the other side, right? So it's like, have jokes, have laughs, have a joke, have a laugh with them, have a blast with them. You know, so many jokes. Me and Dan DeCesar, we were laughing our asses off. Me and Valor Tomash, we were laughing our asses off. Me and Oba the Great, we were laughing our asses off. And that makes the viewer laugh with you. And it makes it like a fun conversation between 3 buddies. You, the guest, and the viewer. And that makes it so damn amazing. So have a laugh, have a joke, be unprofessional sometimes. It's okay. It's not a professional for the interview from TMZ, CNN, Fox News, BBC, whatever, you know. If a question comes up, ask it, even if it isn't on the list or on the script. So you have a script, a list of questions they want to ask them. If something comes up in your mind that you want to ask and it's not on that list, it's okay. Ask. The most spontaneous questions are usually the best ones that go into long ass tangents and rants, you know, and it's absolutely fine, you know. That makes the conversation again longer and better, and you know, when it's spontaneous, it's honest, and when it's honest, then it makes it just so much better. So, not saying that your scripted questions can be honest, but it's like it's even better if you have a spontaneous question, just ask it. And another thing is vibe. With some people, you'll vibe differently, right? So you'll vibe differently with very different people. You'll see that I had with fucking Ned Place, right? Ned Sainsbury Place. I had a 45-minute conversation with him. I didn't vibe with him that much. We disagreed. It's okay. We were professional about it. We were friendly. But it's just like we had different worldviews in terms of fitness. You know, I thought I'm highly against processed foods, and he was like, "Hey, if it works for you, do it. It's just like, and then we had differences. So it was not even an hour long conversation. Also he was like low on time because he was in Bulgaria at the time, and But then I had conversation with, oh, but a great Dan DeCesaris, 2.5, 3 hour long conversation. Had these long conversations that were so amazing because I just vibed with the person. So this is what you have to expect. You don't expect a conversation to be an hour long because sometimes you will have 3 hour long conversations, whereas me with Dan, I expected it to be like an hour long, hour and a half long conversation. It was 3 hours and it was fun. And he actually DM'd me after that one, like, hey, if you ever want to run a second episode to this one, I'm game. So, we just clicked very well. It was like a fun guy. We just like, we agreed on a lot of stuff. We disagreed on some stuff. And we had a fun conversation. We were both honest and genuine. It was just like so much fun. It's like, yeah, you'll vibe different with different people. Don't have a time limit. Okay, this is another tip. Don't have a time limit. Or we'll have like an hour long conversation. It might turn into 3 hours, 2 hours. It might turn into half an hour, man. Honestly. Some people just give you short answers and they don't want to extrapolate and extend on the answer, which is okay. They're not so invested in the conversation, and the conversation just is shorter. I always thought that all my podcasts need to be an hour long at least. Like I need to stretch it to be an hour long. No, I've had 20-minute interviews with like Chris Press. That's what because of a technical issue, dude. I had 45-minute long conversation with fucking Ned Sainsbury Place. But I had like shorter ones with people, and you don't need to drag it. You'll see by the vibe. If the vibe is not there, end the podcast whenever the questions end. And if you just vibe with someone, don't think they are taking up too much of their time because oftentimes a lot of people they just actually love like talking. So it's like it's okay. A lot of people will tell you, "Hey man, I'm running low on time," like, and you'll just like get the rapid fire questions at the end, and it's done. So this was all my knowledge, not all, but the majority of my knowledge, all of my knowledge I give in my coachings, etc. So it's like that's some of the more nuanced stuff, technical stuff, and some of the more secret stuff I don't give out for free, but that's okay. This is like the starter pack to starting a podcast. This is the stuff that you should know. So I really take a lot of value in this, and yeah, man, I hope that you've learned a lot, and this has been one hell of a ride. We're going for 100 podcasts this year, hopefully, and I'd love to have you on the journey with me, guys. So yes, I really want to thank you guys for loving the podcast, for loving the clips, loving the full length podcast and everything. I want to keep making more, trying to get more and more interesting guests, and thank you for watching a lot. So with this in mind, God bless you, and I'll catch you on the next one.